Hello, my name is Ana, and I am very happy to be an FIGT scholar this year. I grew up as a third culture kid, and for those who don't know, that means that I was raised in a few countries that were different from my passport country or my parents' home countries. I'm from Romania, and I lived there until I was 8, but then we moved abroad to India, then Bangladesh, then Sri Lanka, and China, where I completed high school. Since then, I've lived in the Netherlands, where I moved for university, and I'm still living, finishing my master. It wasn't though until I came to university that I started to really question my identity and what I say when people ask me, "Where are you from?" The classic question. I'd always said I was from Romania back in international school because when you're in an environment where everybody is from a different country, that answer just makes sense. But here, I realized saying I'm from Romania means something very different because when my peers said they were from, Germany, they were really from Germany, as in they had grown up in the same town all their lives. They had intimate knowledge of politics, culture, of current events in their country. They had, lots of friends back home. They had lots of families they were in touch with. That just isn't the case for me in Romania. I have some connections to the place and I still consider it my home, but I just cannot compare my experiences to that of my peers. So that answer didn't really cut it anymore. But then I thought, okay, I need to list all the different countries I've lived in to explain why my past was different. But that seemed incomplete too, because when I was just providing the list of countries, most people were, first of all, too awed and surprised to react in any, tangible way. But more importantly, I felt like it didn't fully capture my experience growing up, which at the end of the day, yes, it took place in these locations, but the core of my experience was very specific. For example, it did not really mention the fact that I was educated at American private schools in all these places. And that truly shaped who I am today. So yeah, it's a long story to explain it all, but what I'm interested in is what is really at the core of these cross-cultural experiences. When I met peers at university who, despite not being true third culture kids in the sense of the definition, they had very multicultural experiences in their childhood. For example, both their parents came from very different cultural backgrounds, even though perhaps they're living in one country only. Or another interesting example is many friends who have gone on exchange during high school, as in actively choosing to immerse themselves in a completely different culture for a whole year, away from their parents, away from their families, away from the home, the only home they've ever known. And that I admire and find very, very inspiring because that to me shows a very active and very, way of culturally engaging that is much more, let's say, on an equal basis and an immersive way. My experience of cross-cultural engagement was very different because growing up as an expat kid, I experienced a lot of the countries I lived in from behind the window of a car or from between the bars of a gated school wall. And of course, that's also specific to some of the countries I've lived in, but the reality is that this is a way of experiencing the world that I was used to as a child, that many third culture kids who grow up this way become quite accustomed to. But I think that's not really talked about enough when we talk about what it means to have an international cross-cultural experience. So in terms of where we go from here, these are the questions I'm interested in asking in our community. What does it mean to be international? How is my experience of being international similar from that of my peers? And in what ways is it very different? In what ways does our identities, such as gender, class, or race, create those differences? I am very, very excited and look forward to exploring such topics and more at the FIGT conference this year.